Hey, how's it going, guys? Political Spatula here, back with another day of Propaganda Watch. And I wanted to take a look at Abdul Al-Sayed running in Michigan and kind of go over his points and debunk a lot of the things that he says. I think people need to be on the lookout for these people calling for larger government, and they sell it to you in a very palatable way. Nobody wants a bigger government. Average day American citizens don't want a bigger government because at the end of the day, that means more taxes, more federal oversight, a bigger, slower bureaucracy. It comes with a lot of things, right? And that is what they're pushing. They're pushing for more federal spending and bigger government like we're not in debt. And these aren't the people that should be running the United States because they're not actually fixing the issues. They are just pandering to the people. And really sometimes that's not always the best thing you can do. As video game designers, I'm sure know very well, sometimes pandering doesn't always work out for you. So let's get into this now.
Political will to get there. I want you to imagine that next to your insurance card, you had another card. And that card was your Medicare card. It came to you the day you were born.
If you were born with a Medicare card, that would increase taxes significantly because instantly disabled people that need like $50 million surgeries would have to get, all of those surgeries done. And it would instantly fall back on the taxpayer's dollar. So you would be looking at like tax rates like Canada. And it also really comes down to eliminating the free market. And that's what he wants to do. We can't forget that the government already can't be trusted with our taxpayer dollars. Look at what's already happened in Minnesota and the fraud in California and the COVID fraud and the Michigan fraud. And of course, you want another Democrat in power that's saying, oh, we want more of your taxpayer dollars. We want to tell you how to spend your money is truly what this comes down to is Democrats want a bigger government and they don't think that you can be trusted with your own money by expanding the government and taking that money in taxes.
And it didn't matter if you turned 26 or get married or get divorced or get a job or lose a job, that you could get health care with it. That's what Medicare for All is.
No, like I said, Medicare for All really is just taxing the people more and more and more. Germany couldn't afford its universal health care, so it had to cut its health care, and the people freaked out because they got so used to it. But they didn't care that the German government was literally drowning in debt. You know who else is drowning in debt? The United States, with $39 trillion in debt. We're about to hit $40 trillion. If we were taxed 50% like Canadians, we would probably revolt against the United States, not like our average tax rate of 24% now. And also, Canada doesn't exactly have the greatest healthcare either. People are typically waiting incredibly long times to get seen in the ER, and not at the United States. We've seen reports of Canadians coming down to the United States specifically for healthcare, and they wouldn't do that if they switched to his universal healthcare system where, drug addicted people can come into the hospital and beg for drugs. Like in Canada, they have a huge opium problem over there. So he's not fixing any issues. He's really just making them worse.
To start bringing those rates down. Here's the other crazy thing about pharma. Almost every pharmaceutical that has come to market in the last decade has had its roots in NIH-funded research. You know who paid for that? We did.
And that's another short-sighted argument, right? The NIH gave $5 billion under Obama for cancer research, heart disease research, and autism research, along with other things. The NIH has been doing this since 1986 because companies don't have the money to do the research like that, and the federal government doesn't have the time. And it's also not like these are fully funded prescriptions either. They're only partially funded or sometimes even barely funded. And are these not researches that need to happen? Like, private companies typically have a better track record for getting things done than any government. And anyone that's been alive for like longer than 20 years can tell you that.
But they're right about a lot of the problems. I think we need to stop selling huge amounts of ultra-processed foods in ways that have us subsidizing them via a whole bunch of programs, when what we really want is people to be eating healthy foods in the first place.
And thank goodness, under Donald Trump, RFK was able to get a new, healthier food pyramid out there, one that wasn't lobbied by corporations like in 1992, completely compromising that food pyramid that the Democrats also made fun of when Donald Trump came out with a new food pyramid. They made fun of it because that food pyramid, they didn't get paid for making that one.
Subsidizing them via a whole bunch of programs when what we really want is people to be eating healthy foods in the first place, right? Like in our current system, let's be clear, a lot of people make a lot of money off of people getting sick.
Yeah, that is how free industry works. That is how the free market operates. You get sick, you go to doctor. Doctor has medicine to make you feel better. You give doctor money, doctor gives you medicine. That is how the free market works.
But it shouldn't be that your health insurance says, no, here's who's in network and here's who's out of network. So you're going to go here and you're going to like it. And I think there's a couple of pieces that we need to institutionalize.
And there it is again. He wants to institutionalize it. Like Obama making Medicare wasn't enough. And who set up that system for if your doctor could accept you if you have Medicare or not? Obama, because you can't force the free market to do what the federal government wants. You can't. That is dictator, authoritarian territory. And we need to call this out where it is.
Would you seek to reorient U.S. foreign policy?
I don't believe in unconditional foreign military aid to anyone. I don't pay my taxes every year to be like, man, I can't wait for Israel to get a new tank.
Okay. Which is super silly, right? Because during World War II, we sent $690 billion in today's money in unconditional aid. That is compared to Israel, which we've sent $300 billion to since 1948 to modern day. And this is the kind of guy that you wouldn't want in America in 1939 because he would have been supporting the Imperial Japanese at this argument he has. This argument he has, he would have been supporting the fascists in Germany. Because we can't forget who Israel's fighting. The terrorist groups that are operated by Iran, the country that wants to get nuclear weapons to blow up the West.
When it comes to Israel's own behavior, I think we need to engage them consistent with what they have done. They have perpetrated genocide.
Which is untrue. Only 3.5% of the Palestinian population has died in this war so far over the years it's been going on, compared to Germany's like 40% of the Jewish population over there. So the numbers don't add up. And for as long as these wars have been going on as well, those numbers don't add up either. So his numbers don't add up. 3.5% of the Palestinian population's been wiped out in 2 years and 10 months, where 40% of the Jewish population was wiped out in 4 years. This is no genocide.
Right? They lobbied to move us into a war. Now they're trying to annex southern Lebanon. Like, I just think that any other country that behaved that way would be treated as a rogue nation because they're violating international law.
I'm really glad this guy is not president. This guy has to be an October 7th denier, because the fact that he said Israel acts as a rogue nation is completely hilarious. It is surrounded by highly volatile nations, and the October 7th attack is what kicked all of this off. That was incredibly horrible, where we didn't get like a single woman back from all of the hostages because of how poorly Hamas treated them. So they couldn't tell their story to NATO and the EU. And he's going to sit here and tell you that Israel's a rogue nation. Thank you for watching this far. If you liked the video, don't forget to like and subscribe, comment down below, and let's continue.
The things that we're doing with our tax dollars to backstop a foreign government somehow makes Jewish folk more safe here. That doesn't make sense to me.
Of course that wouldn't make sense to him. That's hilarious. He wouldn't understand how abandoning Jews across the world would affect Jews here at home, especially considering there has been a significant spike in Jewish hate crimes since the Gaza-Israel war. And what happened during World War II when Germany decided that it wanted to go on the anti-Jewish path? Did the citizens also go on the anti-Jewish path, or did they love them? Because history tells us otherwise.
As an American citizen, I'm paying taxes for this government to bomb and kill us for what?
He is bombing your country for a couple of reasons. One, because they're backed by the Iranian regime. The October 7th attack, their treatment of women, the treatment of women. He calls himself a United States citizen and wonders why some people are so upset at people over there. It's because of how they treat women. You can't call yourself a United States citizen and look down on your wife because of her gender. And that is the culture you're genuinely a part of. That is why they are getting bombed. Not because they're good people, because they raped women and invaded on October 7th.
Here's the thing. So I've run government agencies, and once they take on a certain culture, it's really hard to change the culture. Really, really, really hard. So under Trump, he started to recruit people who specifically came to ICE, not to specifically enforce immigration policy, but they're against immigration.
Which is a joke. They're not against immigration. They're anti-illegal immigration. These are illegal immigrants that broke into our country. Imagine your country is like your house and someone breaks in. You don't know if they're going to rob you, kill you, etc. They've already committed one crime. So that's the crime. That's why they're being deported. That's the crime. And ICE is primarily going after people that are repeat offenders. So he's going to paint this in some sort of way like ICE is the boogeyman and they're bad and they're evil, but they're not. It really comes down of, do you think immigrants should assimilate to the country or not? And he doesn't think so.
Out of a home, you can't afford your health care. And his answer was a simple one. Well, if you're out of a job, it's because the immigrant took a job. Out of a home, immigrants living in your home. Out of healthcare, immigrants to get healthcare. And so he turned immigrants into the answer to everybody's problems. And then he built out ICE as a way of demonizing immigration itself.
That is untrue. Donald Trump is mostly deporting illegal immigrants. That is the key factor here. 90,000 of them had prior criminal convictions. And Obama deported 3 million people, and Donald Trump deported 1.2 million. So his argument's already null and void. No president has been anti immigration. All presidents are just anti illegal immigration.
ICE itself has become a rogue agency based on a premise that is inconsistent with both the Constitution and the ideals of our country.
Alright, so ICE has been around since 1789. It is one of the nation's oldest federal agencies, and it was later dissolved into ICE. So he's already lied there. He already lied there. Let's continue. Now, it's not unconstitutional, because in the late 19th century, the government did the Chinese Exclusion Act and the Immigration Act of 1891 because too many immigrants were entering the United States and they were getting overwhelmed. Now, come on. This is what happens when people forcibly forget history like him.
We don't need it. In fact, we didn't have it before 2002.
Which, like I said, is a lie. ICE did exist before 2002. It existed in 1789 under a different name and slightly different duties. And some of its duties were dissolved into what would now be ICE. So just because it went by a different name and had the same but slightly different job doesn't make it new all of a sudden. This is what happens when the left writes history. I hope you guys watched this far. It really helps out a lot. Like the video and subscribe. Comment down below. Let me know your thoughts on all of this. And have a good one.